do whatever makes sense for your being. A lot of people are trying to do this full time. So I guess financially, if you got to do what you got to do, then get after it. One of the things I think that we need to get back to a little bit is creation for the sake of creation. And I've said this in a couple of interviews, but it's like I don't think that everything needs to be minted. Like you can
Mhm.
just create for the fuck of it.
Hello, everybody. I'm very excited for our guest today. I'm here with Mark Wilson, known as Guy with the Most Likes. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great. Greasy, shitting, shaking, ready to talk about depraved shit. So I'm super excited. I'm allowed to swear on this, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can say whatever you want.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah,
I'm
I
stoked
mean,
to talk to you, dude.
yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, you have such a special online persona, and you're mixing so much stuff, right? Between, raw emotions, you're also doing commentary on what's happening in the world, but also in the Web3 and digital art space, and very, very, unique visuals.
Thank you for the kind words, of course. And yeah, it's weird. It's funny that like at the start of this, it's like Mark will, it's because like there is kind of two disparate people living inside where it's like there's Mark Wilson is like, myself. I'm from Northern Indiana, just this kind of, yeah, just, and it's funny that the die with the most likes, like almost, it's like an exaggerated version of the things that happen within all of us, I think, that we want to communicate, but some of us can't. So it's just this kind of unfiltered, completely raw output of like, extreme, extreme art, extreme writing, just kind of embracing the madness that we all go through on a daily basis and finding beauty and love within that, and trying to pulverize people into a similar state of a madness on mine. So it's great having
Yeah.
these two things that are really one in the same sense, though. Like they both are me genuinely and wholly, but there is this kind of weird divide because it's not like you would want to interview somebody who was just like talking about Monster Energy and fuckable fleshlights the entire time.
Before the interview, I was wondering, who am I getting? I'm getting the real Mark, or this guy that is on Twitter, which is, very, very different. But I was reading some of your interviews, and it feels like you have been, as you said, separating, right? Both personas. When did you do that? Were you docs early on, or is that something that you did recently?
I was doxxed really early on because I'm also an author, so like I have all these books out that are just under my name, and I have the most normal name in terms of America. Like Mark Wilson's, there's millions of us out there, so it's like a really kind of innocuous name that I have, which but I love it. But really like I think that on Twitter and online and when you're doing these different interviews and talking to people, like everyone here is human and everyone here just wants to be a decent person, I think. And so
Yeah.
like to deprive them of having like a genuine conversation in favor of like what is kind of a facade would just be a really depressing prospect, I think. So, like there's parts of it that I definitely will insert in there with like funny quips and stuff, but for the most part, yeah, I do kind of like have those kind of be outliers, like especially in this sense. But yeah, at the same time, it's like it's funny. Like I think that it's been really heartwarming and crazy to see so many people resonate with the side of things that is way crazier and way more mad and again like absurd. So I think that a lot of us have that in us, and and like and want to embrace it a little bit more. So that's what I love doing is kind of serving that up and being a documentarian of the space of what's happening in my life, inserting that what's happening in others people's lives, and then hopefully providing like a moment of reprieve within that art, whether that be joy or sadness or pain, creating that connection between myself and the collector or just the viewer, because like really, yeah, like I love my collectors and I love the people who can afford to collect, but like I'm just so thankful that anybody even looks at my stuff, let alone collects it. So like everyone is just incredible in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, I think you describe it well. I think some people can connect very well with your art, but others can watch it, can look at it, and just have a good time, right? Because it's kind of, you play with humor a lot. So even if
Yeah.
you don't really understand it at first glance, you know there is something behind it, and you start to think about it. So what is this piece about? And you do
Mm,
a lot of writing, right, as well. So I was, you mentioned you publish 5 books. You're an author, and I was wondering. So do you consider the writing as part of the process? Is that something that goes hand in hand with your process?
definitely it is. Yeah. And it's funny because like all those books that I wrote, I assumed that no one would ever read them. Like when they were written, like I'd spent so many hours, like hundreds of hours creating these like, 80,000 to 100,000 word like novels or short story collections. And then like I would look at Amazon and there was like one person who had read it and reviewed it and gave it a 1 star and said that it made her physically ill to read. So like, those were the types of interactions that I had. And I said, look, I guess if that's my legacy is making this one 65-year-old woman physically ill from reading my novel, then like I accept that and like it's completely fine. But it was pretty sad because I did put so much effort into those books, and now to have people go back to those things and like read them now that they enjoy the art so much, it's been like it's been really overwhelming. Like it's so nice because those things are kind of the asphalt from which the kind of like art strip mall has been constructed in some ways. Like the ideas that I was exploring in there in terms of like the sadness. There's a lot of reflections about varying times in like retirement homes and hospitals. Just very personal and deeply personal experiences that I've had. So a lot of my art is still being like threaded through those books that were written. And then in terms of your original question, like does one feed off of the other? Absolutely. And like I really love it when the collectors of pieces will say like, holy shit, like the poem you wrote for that piece or the piece of prose that you constructed was like super impactful and really it really affected me in a certain way. Like I really loved these 2 lines. I think that part is so important for me because I want it to be this really complete piece that leaves nothing up to question. It's just like this is everything contained here, and I want to guide you through every single morsel of that piece as it kind of flows out of my fingers and mouth and eyes.
Yeah, I can see that, and I know, I'm also very active on social media, and you are very active as well. And looks like you put a lot of time and thought into what you share, even if it looks like what some people call low effort, but it's
Yeah,
actually a lot of effort, right? To put it constantly,
it,
day to day. So how do you deal with that? Are you a perfectionist? Like you spend a lot of time, crafting the exact
mm.
message, rereading your stuff, and before sharing it, or how it's that the writing process?
That's a great question, and it's funny because it's kind of like almost the opposite of that, where there's this relentless need to more or less vomit everything out that I'm thinking about and have it just be this kind of like running again like documentary more or less of what I'm seeing it in any given time. So for the most part what I find so great about that is there's freedom in that onslaught of art, in that onslaught of writing, because I think when you constrain yourself and you're thinking about things too much, you oftentimes are refining to the point where the piece loses its meaning or the piece kind of it becomes you almost become numb to it because you've been around it so much and because you're pulling these different scabs and things from that wound that you're trying to explore versus just letting it do its thing and unleashing it into the world and people can experience it the way they want. So really I think about things a lot, but in terms of how I'm curating what I'm saying, that stuff is just flying out. It's just an
Mm.
absolute open hole that is just dumping into everyone's agape eyes and mouth. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there's again, I think that like that relentlessness and that onslaught, it's really difficult to do because I also work like a 9 to 5 terrible job
Mm.
creating digital waste. So it's like it's a lot, but I enjoy it so much that it's like a reflex at this point, I guess.
Yeah. Mark, how do you do to keep track of everything? Because you
Mhm.
are also, paying attention to everything that's happening on Web3. That's kind of your input, right? To get
Yeah.
the idea. So do, how do you do that? You spend a lot of time in social media. You have a specific groups, discords. What's the how
Yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah, too much time on social media for sure. I mean, like I think like all of us, we're just sitting there bleeding formative memories into Twitter, X, and in favor of like this endless scroll. And it's pretty depressing in some ways, I guess, and sad. But at other times, it's this weird connective tissue between all of us that we share. So, we're living in this like really incredible time in terms of there being this like unity and there being this common thread between all of our imaginations and the things that we're consuming and that we're sharing and that we're like enjoying or hating or having these reactions to. And then on the other side of that is this disgust with that, like with that cycle and that perpetual,
Mm,
again, like I'm obsessed with consumption and evacuation. So like, eating and shitting and those being the only two things that you're capable of. There's no like
mm,
feeling in any of it. So in some ways, I'm constantly always indulging in that, and then in other ways, a lot of my art is certainly like a takedown or like a dissection of that very
mm.
process that we're all indulging in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that because I also spend countless hours, online, and I do a similar thing because I write about what's happening, right? Try to find the good stuff and share it. And yeah, it can be, as you said, it's demanding, and sometimes you need to find a way to, get out of there. And I've found
Yeah,
like the IRL events have been kind of a very nice escape. And
for
and
sure.
I know you have been in a couple, and Glitch Marfa comes to mind. You
Hmm.
had a great show. I don't know
Yeah,
how you
thank you.
call it. How do you call?
It's a great, yeah, so it's a great question again. I mean it was known professionally as a fuckable flea market. So like it was the first ever fully fuckable flea market in Marfa, which was really cool. But it was more or less like or it was an installation with the Glitch team, Derek and Madison, who are incredible, and the Transient Labs
Hmm,
team that helped orchestrate this entire crazy event, which we can get into. But it was, yeah, it was part performance art, part installation, part physical painting, part flea market. So it was just all of these crazy things coming together in this remote Texas town that just really. I'll be honest, like when we came out of that thing, I like welled up on the way to the airport because emotionally it was so crazy to see so many people enjoy both the concept itself and like my art and each other and having created something that's going to live in a lot of people's memories for a really long time was very very overwhelming and something that I didn't expect that type of reception for it, so it was
hmm.
it was very emotional for me for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. And let me know if we want to get into other questions on that front. I'm sorry I kind of took over there, but like it's
No,
it was
no.
it was crazy. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there, but what I found very, very, exciting is that as you were there with, I don't know exactly how much people, but the pictures, I mean, the photos, it was like a huge crowd in
Yeah.
Marfa, as you said, but then you had the Mint, the broadcast, the beef
Yep.
broadcast going online, and everybody was talking about them. So you were there in Marfa doing the show, and people digitally were trying to get their hands on these broadcasts. So everybody knew about the what was happening there, kind of, right? Because it was happening live. So it was, I think, a special moment into one of the most successful like live
Hmm.
mints, right? In
Thank
in
you.
in
Yeah.
usually live mints aren't capturing a lot of attention because space is limited, and online you get thousands of
Yeah.
people at the same time. But this was,
Yep.
I think, one of the ones that I saw a great reception both physically and digitally. Did you plan that, or it was kind of out of nowhere because it's a huge
Oh,
collection, right?
it is. Yeah, it's a collection of 666 AI assisted Brothco paintings where like I painted 40 beef Brothcos that I've been doing in my basement for I've been doing these for like years now where I thought it was really humorous to I don't know, skewer and celebrate the absurdity of art creation and collection itself. So like if you read the kind of collection description, it's this very brutal, like I don't know what you would call it. And again, like dissection of what we're all doing here, our purpose in life, and the fact that like maybe we're no different than the animals being slaughtered and shoved around a butcher's floor and like bleeding out. So we trained an AI model on that, and then yeah, like I just couldn't really comprehend what was happening at the time because I was in character. There was a glory hole that people had to reach into in order to see if they won a physical Brothco, and then that had the mint site on it. And it was really funny because for a while they were minting really slow, and I was like, oh man, people do not like Brothcos. But I think it was because there were so many people experiencing like internet outages, like the gallery itself, like it's in this like
Mm,
beautiful like but it's very cavernous, so the internet's not great there. So people were kind of panicking, and you'd see people step outside, but then there was also madness happening, and people were trading flashlights at the same time. So then we finally get home, and I'm like, I didn't mint any. I'm like, oh, I completely forgot. And then they were all
yeah.
sold out. And then the next day, they were up to whatever. They were like an ETH a piece or something. I'm like, what the hell is going
Mm,
on? So that was another really cool part to see people uh, embrace those so much and embrace the idea of again the absurd. And it was just it was such a wild event, honestly. Like again, huge thank you to the Glitch team, Derek and Madison, and Transient Labs who they built an entire fake art block site called Kmart Blocks that you had to mint from, and it was this whole like really
man.
unique experience. So I think that's what people really love here, and why I respect so many people here is because they're always looking for something that's peculiar and different, and something that's going to be that really unique
Yeah.
experience that is memorable. So like I was happy to provide that from both a digital end and a physical end. It's like there was no stone left unturned. We just really wanted to provide this from start to finish on every single avenue and every single way that someone could experience it. We wanted it to be so unique that it would
Yeah.
really stand out and definitely accomplish that.
Yeah, no, and I agree. What Glitch Marfa is doing is amazing, right? Having this
So
gallery
good.
in the middle of the desert.
It's
I really hope I can visit this year or maybe next one.
you
And
should.
actually, for those that haven't they don't know what Glitch Marfa is. We had them in the podcast. So Madison, Derek, and Malte last
Yep.
year they shared the whole idea behind Glitch Marfa. And Madison mentioned you are collaborating again with them. Can you tell us a bit of what you have in store for Glitch
Oh
Marfa?
yeah. Oh man, it's so exciting to be doing something with them again. Like you said, there's something really special, not only about them, yeah, Malta, Maddie, and Derek, who like they're just they love art so much, and they love like the experience and being able to experience art so much. Like, and that's why I think that it was so cool that they took a risk on the fuckable flea market. Like, I don't think a lot of people would necessarily sign up for that, but they're like, let's do it. Let's get weird. And so,
Yeah.
they reached out and they wanted to do something again. And I just said like, of course, like there was no question about it. Like, it was so great working with them. So I'll be doing a residency in Marfa,
Mm.
Texas for a month. The entire month of May, I'll be out there. And I'm so excited because it's a special place. Like there's something very desolate about it. There's something oddly magical, slightly haunting. It's a place that inspires you to create work in a
Mm.
very specific way. So I'm very excited to get out there and do my painting, and I'll be creating all sorts of watercolor paintings. And then also the biggest part of this is it's going to culminate in my first ever generative drop on
Mm.
Art Blocks engine. So we're working with this incredible creative coder named Sydney Parks,
Mhm.
who's one of the she's just she's brilliant really in terms of how she approaches things. But what they kind of just said, do whatever you want to do. And so I came up with this concept that's similar to what we're doing right now. It's called Nameless Dread. And what it is it's a generative output that explores our digital suffering as human beings. So the fact that we're all quietly eroding under this probing camera lens, that we're all just sitting here and kind of slowly dying and not even really noticing it, and kind of just becoming lubricant for the wheels of the desk chair of the next sorry fuck to take our place. So it's like all of those feelings that we feel every day in this generative thing. So there'll be these portraits of people behind Zoom in these Zoom containers that are just dying numbly without any celebration, without anyone really discussing it. And the generative part of it is so beautiful because our computer and the digital aspect of our existence is constantly dictating how we suffer every day. It's like, here's an onslaught on Twitter. It sucks. Here's a load of meetings all day. Here's, an absolute orgy of spam emails that you have to sort through. So the generative aspect, and this is so beautiful because people are signing up for the computer to, again, dictate how horrific
Mm.
that time that they're going to
Yeah.
have during experiencing this piece is going to be. So it's super fucking rad, and I am just like, I'm beside myself for how good it's looking and how cool it is. So we've been working on that, and then through the residency, we'll be wrapping everything up on that project and launching it
Mm.
on May 30th.
Okay, that's exciting. So you will be 1 month down there in Texas, doing your paintings, but also working together with the creative coder to put this project together, and then it will be released on our blogs engine. That's
Yep.
exciting. Is this your first, will it be your first generative art collection?
It will be. So technically first, because I did do I did two on FX hash that were like just layer based. So like
Uh-huh.
essentially like I used JavaScript where it would just like place layers in different areas.
Hmm.
It was the first ever glory hole project. So people would mint glory holes and there would be these different like layers that are on there. But this one is actually using code and actually there's going to be the computer's actually dictating the randomness of the suffering of the misery. So it's really special. And like I just looking at these things and like the fact that also there's it's going to be huge. So like I'm also like I also consider myself in some ways uh, a physical generative machine because like we were talking about earlier, that relentlessness of output. So like I'll be hand drawing a portion of all of these things, hand painting a
Hmm.
portion of all these pieces. So really, people talk about one of X. Like every single one of these is going to be a one of one technically with the way
Hmm.
that I'm hand painting these things. But there was going to be some super rad generative aspects, tons of Easter eggs all over it. So it's just like, oh man, it's so exciting. I'm really pumped about it. And Sydney is just like every time I talk to her, she's got another thing that she's brewing up. So collaborating with her has been so great. And then of course, yeah, Derek and Madison in Malta have just been awesome
Yeah.
to work through and give me kind of the both the freedom and also the guidance on yeah how beautiful this drop is going to be.
Yeah, no, that sounds very exciting. Have you been like before in any kind of residency or like spending away from home a month or a long time to create art, or would it be the first time?
Yeah, and like in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have imagined this. Like I'm a dude from northern Indiana. Like I've talked about this in a couple of my pods, but it's not like we didn't have any art museums, like it was like RV Hall of Fames and
Mm.
billboards with personal injury lawyers were like the biggest inspirations artistically. So to be kind of to be asked to do a residency in a gallery that I love so much and in a place I love so much, I honestly didn't really know what to do. I was like, I didn't know how to respond. I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you. Are you sure that you're picking the right guy with the most likes? Like, this may be another artist that you. So it's gonna be the first time, and I'm very excited about it. It's gonna be difficult leaving my wife and my dog for a month, but she's been helping with the project so much too, and she's like, she's she's very into the idea of me going out there and being able to like fully delve into this whole process and delve into a part of myself creatively that I think is I think that the desolation and the desert are a big catalyst for me
Yeah.
creatively and how I like to make things that are
Mm.
sad and retreating and kind of more like remote and sad. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sounds like you will get other kinds of, inputs and influences while there, which
That's what I'm
probably,
thinking.
yeah, you probably come up with new themes, right? New
Yeah.
stuff. inspire in Texas, right? In Marfa, in your surroundings. So yeah, that I'm very, very excited about that one. And can we talk a bit about your beginnings? Because I
Sure.
was reading one of your interviews with Right Click Save, and I didn't know, to be honest, but you started on Nunc, right, on
Yeah,
Tesos, and
I did.
was that the beginning? How did you find Nunc? How was
It
that?
will. Yeah, that was the beginning for sure. Yeah, it was so a random internet person reached out to me. This was like the height of like gas craziness and like
Mm,
foundation invites and the all the fucking madness that we endured during that time. And he said, and so I had a poster or this like fake campaign poster for the comedian Eric Andre go semi-viral on Twitter is how he found me. He said like, "Hey, have you considered minting anything?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. And I said like, I don't know. Like, and he's like, "Well, you could sell some of this stuff." I'm like, "Sweet." Because right now it's just sitting on Instagram collecting dust, you know? Like it's just
yeah.
like nobody really wants it. Nobody wants to look at it. Nobody even wants to like it. So I said, sounds good. And so I minted a piece on Foundation. Of course, didn't get a bid because I didn't have any, I didn't have a following. I didn't like, I didn't have a community at all. I didn't have any collectors or anybody who like really fucked with my stuff. So, which was fine. Like it wasn't abnormal for me to not sell something.
Mhm.
It's like, sounds good. I've been doing this my whole life, not selling anything. So that's great. Let's go. Um, so then like somebody else reached out. It was, or maybe it was him, and he said, "Hey, there's this platform Nunc where it doesn't cost anything to mint. So you just mint whatever you want, and it just
Mhm.
does it." I'm like, okay, sick. Like, I'll give that a try. So I just started minting shit on there, and I couldn't even tell. Like the interface was so busted and strange. I couldn't tell if even I was selling anything or not. So I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know, like, but then like I started figuring it out, and I'm like, damn, I'm selling stuff. And at the time, I'm like, holy shit, I sold a piece for $22. This is insane. And like,
Mm,
honestly, it did feel crazy because I was selling paintings, like physical paintings, for $20, like that would barely
mm,
cover the cost of like materials and time and all that shit. So it was very, again, surreal for me. And then I became I just started putting shit out there, and like I kind of just had this style that I developed, the name and all of the the kind of persona, as it were, like the exaggerated version. And then
You had that already when you joined Nunc. You already had that figured out, or you discovered that in Nunc? Like,
I already had, yeah, I already had it, like, because I was also during that time, I'd already had a couple of books published as
mhm.
well. So like
Yeah.
I was already delving into like the, yeah, really more absurd parts of myself that I enjoyed to portray digitally. But yeah, then on Hic et Nunc, it really amped up and ratcheted up, and that's when I really found my style and like what I wanted to
Mm,
explore visually versus like written wise. And then I became, yeah, really good friends with Art Gnome at a
mm,
certain point because he loved this ground beef piece, and it's a whole long story, but he ended up collecting a couple of 101s on mine, and then like he tweeted about it, and the whole thing is like history. Like everyone started buying up all this stuff, and that day was like, dude, that day
mm.
was so mind blowing. And I'll always be so thankful for Art Gnome for being part of like this journey that's taken me here. He's just such a dear friend, and he's such a great person for the space too. Like I love
Yeah.
that dude. He's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in the podcast early on, and yeah, he's amazing. He's always
Such a
like,
nice guy, man.
yeah, and
And
he's
so
looking for
smart. Yeah.
the unique things, right? He's
He
looking for the
is.
different things.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
if people like something, he's not into
Yeah.
that. He's looking for
Agreed.
something weird, something new.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was the beauty of Hick at Noon too, was it was a bunch of weirdos and freaks, and like just you were just it was anything goes. You could mint 1,000 pieces and burn
Mm,
500 and just burn shit and just do whatever the fuck you wanted. And
yeah.
it was such a great time. Like I always describe it as a shared porta potty that we were all shitting and puking into, and then it became so powerful that like it overflowed, and everyone was forced to like reckon with the artists that were making this like weirdo shit in there. So
Yeah.
it was so great that it built up that momentum. And then I'm still like such great friends with so many artists that I met on that platform, and then I like genuinely love their art so much, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think, like these days, I've seen you are, I mean, many of your pieces are on super rare, right? Right? Many of your one-on-ones. So what are your thoughts on, Tesos, Ethereum? L2s, where to mint. So do you pay a lot of attention to this, or you just go with the flow, or you think it's important to understand like what's happening in the market, what's happening with the platforms? How do you deal with these things?
I think that there should be a reason you mint somewhere for the most part. Like at the time for Tezos, it was
Hmm.
because I couldn't afford gas, where I
Hmm.
was like, I don't know, like, hey, this is great. But then it ended up, that was like the initial reason. Then it ended up just being this rad-ass community. And I think
Yeah.
that's reason enough too. Like you look at a place, you say, hey, I fuck with like all the art here. I want to like join this community and like say what's up to all these dope artists that are minting
Hmm.
on this chain or this marketplace or anything like that. So I think honestly, it's a do whatever makes sense for you. Do whatever makes sense for your being. A lot of people are trying to do this full time. So I guess
Yeah.
financially, if you got to do what you got to do, then get after it. I think for me, there's certainly like a lot of strategy involved in where I place things and how much I mint and how much I just participate in varying things. So I think that one of the things that I think, and I know it was a question that you had in the brief, but it was like one of the things I think that we need to get back to a little bit is creation for the sake of creation. And I've said this in a couple of interviews, but it's like I don't think that everything needs to be minted. Like you can just
Hmm.
create for the fuck of it. Like I usually just do that. Like all the good meats that I post every morning, or like
Yeah.
shitty derivatives of stuff that I enjoy. Like I made this X copy derivative all time high in the shitty, where it was like the baby from dinosaurs and Jar Jar Binks smoking a bong in a boat. And it's like I just love making that piece. It was great. I love
Hmm.
X copy. It was super fun to make. And so I think getting back to a place where you genuinely enjoy making it, and then you can mint it later if it strikes you, but it's like you can also not mint it and just let people enjoy it and experience it in that
Yeah.
moment. So
Yeah, I've seen that suggestion advice for artists many times. Like you can just keep creating, share everything, but be selective with what you mint, but don't stop creating, right? And don't
yeah,
stop sharing. And eventually, yeah, there is something that will make you mint, but there needs to be a purpose, right? And
yep,
no, I agree. I think it's important, especially for yourself, right? Because you're somebody that's paying attention to what's happening and trying to kind of take that and share it in a different view, right? More raw and trying to put some humor into it. So it makes sense that you keep sharing, keep sharing, keep
for sure.
sharing. Um, yeah, no, that's exciting. And Mark, what are you excited about, and what things you are not super excited about in the current state of things?
Yeah, excited for well, I
Marfa,
mean,
Marfa.
excited for Marfa. I gotta say, I mean, that's like
Yeah.
it's taken over my whole brain. Like it's like everything every day I'm thinking about the project and like, the paintings and just the overall like opportunity and stuff. So that is I'm like, I'm ungodly excited about that. I think for the space, it is cool to see everyone. I like how it's become a little bit less rigid. I'll say that. Like we were talking about, mint wherever the fuck you want, do whatever the fuck you want, go
Hmm.
for it. It's not like I don't think people are as stringent as they used to be in terms of their judgment for
Hmm.
like people minting on certain places or art existing somewhere, or maybe an art piece doesn't sell out right away. It's like that's okay. Like it's like you don't have to have an immediate sellout every
Yeah.
single time. So I've been happy to see that attitude shift a little bit, because
Yeah.
it's like a psychotic attitude to have that, like, every time something comes out that it would sell out immediately is
Yeah.
it's really just it's an impossibility, right? Like it's
Mm.
just crazy. So that is great. The thing that I'm bummed about, of course, like we just kind of talked about, is just yeah, I do see a lot of creation for the sake of sale, or just in like you can just feel the lifelessness in those pieces sometimes, and it
Hmm.
just bums me out because like yeah, you want to feel something in the art you collect and the art you observe. So when it's being created in that way, like it's really easy, at least for me, to kind of discern that it's been made in that way, and it like
Yeah.
just kind of like, I just look at it with disgust in some
Yeah,
ways,
yeah.
because it's just it kind of is completely against it, of what like art is meant to do, you know?
Yeah, feels more like a factory, right? Like more like a
Yes. Yeah.
factory machine that
Yeah.
artists need to, they want to keep creating artists, but also galleries, right? Or marketplaces. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we need to keep
It's a
producing,
churn.
keep producing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that's why it's so important to keep sharing, right? Even if you don't mint, and then
Yeah.
mint what feels special. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's up.
In terms of artists, I'm very curious about your inspirations. Who are artists you look forward to? Could be digital, could be, out of the Web3 space, but three artists and why? I
Mm.
know it's a tough question, but I think
It's
it's a
it's
good one. Yeah.
it's it is a really good question, because I think we're all perpetually being inspired by each other for the most part, even in those moments of disgust. I think those still inspire in some ways, because you want to make a piece of art that doesn't do that thing, that doesn't seem factory made and produced.
Yeah.
So, like, there's that aspect of it. I think to boil it down to three, though, I love Una. Do you know Una?
Mhm. Yeah, she
So,
was she was in the last episode we released was with Una, actually.
oh, I didn't listen to it yet. I feel so
Yeah.
bad. Dude, oh my God. So she's such an incredible artist. I think that what I love about her is she pushes the boundaries of everything, and she pushes
Yeah.
us to the brink of our imaginations, of what we can tolerate, of gender biases in art, like in collecting, just every part of her kind of overall, like, anon, and again, I guess persona in some ways is such a beautiful
Yeah.
skewering of everything. So a huge fan of Una. Love Summer Wagner. Do you know Summer? She's
Yes.
she does these like crazy. I had a really good description of the piece that I met her through, where it was this woman slaughtering a deer outside of this abandoned cottage, and it was such an emotional piece for me, because it really brought out everything, all these memories that came flooding back from Midwestern
Mm.
adolescence and growing up in kind of remote, cornfields everywhere, and in this kind of like haunting, slightly foreboding, but also very freeing and very like carefree time in all of our lives. So it was. It's trying to reconnect. Hopefully, it didn't. Okay, good.
I think it's good to go. Yeah, it should be
Okay,
good. Yeah,
so she's another one, and then I love Alien Queen.
Alien Queen.
The queen of kind of like trippy, psychedelic, like
Yeah,
fucked out, like crazy skulls, and she's very reminiscent, I think, of, again, that 90s, like early 2000s, like just very first like taking mushrooms, and like just enjoying the
yeah.
shit out of something. It's like I look at her pieces and I find so much of her in those things, and she does this really cool thing where her pieces are like super colorful and very vibrant, but then there's this really inherent sadness in the pieces about death and about mortality, and so
Hmm.
she just does this really good job of almost masking what she's feeding us in these
Yeah.
beautiful colors, and then it's like actually these very like
Mm.
pretty intense pieces. So
Intense. Yeah.
huge fan of those three.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I can see the connection um, to what you do, right? To the kind of messages you try to convey as well. And yeah, for anybody listening, all these artists, all the collections we discussed today will be in the show notes.
Sweet.
Um, Also, information for Glitch Marfa, upcoming residency from Mark, die with the most likes. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. It was great to meet
Oh,
you,
you
Mark.
too, dude. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the thoughtful questions. Like, I mean, it's so nice to talk to somebody who is like, yeah, considered and thought about and like looked at things before. So I really appreciate yeah, you coming up with the great question.
And all the best. All the best in Marfa. I'll be paying attention and share some pictures, man, from
I
Marfa.
will, of course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was great to talk, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Thanks. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you all. Cheers.